Good morning, everyone, and happy World Milk Day. We are so thrilled that you've taken the time to join us today, this morning. It's a very important day globally, and we're truly honored to have a very distinguished personality in our midst, our keynote speaker, the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. He's going to give some remarks in a few minutes. Our agenda for today is that we're going to hear from our keynote speaker, and then we're going to go into a panel on the role of policy in catalyzing the growth of the Nigerian dairy industry, led by Dr. Audu Grema, Senior Program Officer of Agriculture at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Then we're going to have another panel on how a developed dairy industry contributes to increased productivity, women empowerment, and improved nutrition outcomes, and then closing remarks. So we have a packed schedule, and we want to maximize your engagement. Just to tell you a bit about Sahel Consulting, I'm the managing partner of Sahel Consulting. We established 10 years ago, and we work across West Africa, transforming the agriculture and nutrition landscape. Our vision is to be recognized as the most trusted consulting partner and point of reference in the African agriculture and nutrition landscape. We provide a range of services, agri-value chain analysis, training, policy consulting, advisory services, policy implementation, and ecosystem transformation. And we work with a range of partners, development partners, international organizations, and private companies across Africa. In addition, we're very committed to corporate social shared values. We have a Sahel Scholars Program, and some of you participated in a recent conference with academics and students across Nigeria, really promoting agribusiness. Now, why dairy, and why does Sahel work in dairy? We believe that dairy is such an important value chain. Not only is it one of the most accessible sources of nutrition, the dairy value chain globally significantly has opportunities to empower women. And when you actually think about dairy in the context of climate change, it's a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So there's a real need for adaptation and mitigation in this sector. When you look at the global milk production in 2019, India topped the list, and Nigeria is very insignificant, close to the bottom. In fact, indigenous cows in Nigeria produce 1 to 2 liters of milk per day, while their counterparts in the rest of the world produce 25 liters and upwards per day. Sadly, we are not competitive when it comes to milk production when we compare ourselves to India, to Kenya, and to many other emerging economies. Now, what are the key challenges that have limited this sector? First, obviously, is the farmer productivity challenges, limited access to water and quality feed for our farmers, the challenge around artificial insemination to improve the genetic composition of our cows, access to training and vet care. There's also been limited farmer linkages in this sector in terms of ensuring that our farmers can not only process the milk, but access markets. Raw milk prices are relatively uncompetitive compared to milk imports. And there's still tremendous dependency on milk imports and dry milk consumption in our country. When it comes to gender-specific challenges, women have limited ownership and control over productive resources such as land and the cattle, and female inclusion when it comes to the leadership of community groups is limited. Obviously, limited access to finance and financial services for women who often control the milk. And then when we look at Nigerian households, there's a high prevalence of malnutrition. 1 out of every 3 Nigerian child is stunted. And we have challenges around affordability of milk. So unlike many other countries where a glass of milk is part of your daily breakfast, in Nigeria, it's not the case. And only the higher income populations can say that milk is a part of their daily diet. There's also significant food fraud, and many products labeled as milk actually have no protein content. And so there are lots of challenges around the formal dairy sector and how we strengthen this sector and create linkages between the sector and the rest of the industry. For 3 years, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded Sahel to work on the Nigeria Dairy Development Project. And this was a pilot project focused on Kano and Oyo states in partnership with Friesland Campina in Oyo and LNZ in Kaduna. And this year in January, we launched the Advancing Local Dairy Development in Nigeria program, which is funded again by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's a 5-year program that works in 5 states. Kaduna is primarily one of our key states, and that's why we're so delighted to have the governor with us. We work in Plateau, Adamawa, Jigawa, and Kano states. And when we think about the focus of this program, it's really focused on farmer organization, infrastructure development, productivity improvement, financial inclusion and income support, training and extension, advocacy and behavior change, and policy advocacy to support a thriving sector. And this virtual conference is one of the key outcomes of Aldean, because we believe by raising awareness and promoting engagement, we can actually start not only generating interest in this sector, but ensuring that we have the right policies, the right structures to ensure that we can source milk locally and that the impact will be tremendous. So we're delighted to have you. Aldean clearly wants to have more physical conferences, but in the light of COVID-19, we decided we wouldn't wait and we would continue with a virtual conference and take advantage of the opportunity that World Milk Day presents. What does success look like at the end of Aldean? We plan on impacting the lives of 210,000 beneficiaries, ensuring we have 75 boreholes in our communities. These are solar-powered boreholes, so our communities can have access to water, 1,400 self-help groups, trainees across the board, including extension officers, vet doctors, milk cans distributed, 8,000 cows artificially inseminated, and 80,000 tons of fodder produced. Through all of these interventions, we expect that our private sector companies will generate at least and collect at least 190,000 liters of milk. And just to mention the companies that we're working with in these priority states: LNZ in Kano, Majestic in Jigawa, IDL in Plateau, Saj Foods in Kaduna, and Sabore in Adamawa. And hopefully we'll add a few more companies before the end of this year. So that's really Aldean in a nutshell, and we're excited about the lineup of speakers we have today. I am delighted at this point to introduce His Excellency Malam Nasir Ahmed Al-Rufai, who is the governor of Kaduna State. And just by way of introduction, he definitely doesn't need any introduction, but I've known Malam Nasir Al-Rufai for many, many years, at least 20 years. And one of the amazing things about him is his commitment to private sector investment. He, from the time he was at FCT as the minister of the FCT, prioritized private sector engagement, employment creation, and youth development. And through his time in Kaduna State, I would have to say that Kaduna State's #1 in enabling environment. It's actually the state that has won lots of awards on ease of doing business. And we as Ace Foods, we as Sahel can attest to the fact that it's a very welcoming state. Not only are the commissioners and the public sector officials world-class, they're committed to excellence. I have to commend you, Governor, for your phenomenal Commission of Agriculture, who has partnered with us from day one. Not only is she a woman, which I'm excited about, but she is world-class in terms of our commitment to excellence. But across the board, that commitment to excellence has shown through, not just through Sahel's work, but through all the private companies. So we are so delighted that you've joined us this morning, and we're excited to listen to you. Please join me in welcoming the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, a good friend and supporter of the private sector, Malam El-Rufai.
Thank you, Ndidi. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Now, my name is Saudia Mohammed, as you can see, not Nasir El-Rufai, because Saudia is my assistant and she logged me in. I used her login details. I'm in Abuja, she's in Kaduna, that's why. First, I want to thank Ndidi for a very good introduction to the problem. She has said most of, half of what I wanted to say in my keynote. But I think today is a very important day, the World Milk Day, and I'm happy to be here to speak to you about Kaduna State and what we are doing regarding livestock production generally. When we came into office, we were briefed that Kaduna State is the leading livestock state in Nigeria. We contribute a large percentage of the over 60,000 heads of cattle that are slaughtered every day in Lagos. We were a leading producer of milk and yogurt. But over the years, cattle rustling degraded that significantly. So by the time we came into office, the major problem we were facing was cattle rustling. You know, the Fulani herdsmen had no herd, and most of the cattle was owned by the elite, and they just turned to cattle rustling. Today, we are dealing with the same ethnic stock, unfortunately, engaged in banditry, in kidnapping, and so on. So for us, reviving the livestock subsector is both an economic and a security problem. It's an economic problem because we can see clearly it can be a major contributor to our GDP, and we can once again regain our position as a leading state in livestock production. Unfortunately, the context here in Nigeria is that agriculture is seen only as crop production. Livestock is often put in the back burner, it's not given the attention that it deserves, and the consequences are quite clear. The banditry that we are seeing is as a result of years of ignoring any major interventions in the livestock sector. The popularization of the herdsmen and their way of life, is what has contributed to where we are, and it's a major problem. It is affecting not just livestock production; it is even affecting crop agriculture. The major challenge we have now, as the rainy season comes in, is how do we wipe out these bandits so that our farmers can go to the farm. So I'm giving you this context for you to appreciate how important it is for us from day one in 2015 to try to address the development of the livestock sector. But there are other problems. We believe that the sector has a capacity to generate tens of thousands of jobs. And because of the nature and the structure of the livestock industry in Kaduna State, most of the participants, most of those involved, most of those employed are women, which is again another issue that brings gender equity and equality into context. So for us, it was very important to do something about the sector. There are also issues around food security. Nigeria spends about $1.5 billion importing poultry and the dairy-related products. One of Nigeria's leading businessmen came to me in 2018 and said, Nigeria imports about $1.1 billion of powdered milk alone, and he wanted to go into that business. We started discussion, and then in the middle of our discussion, he had made arrangements to bring 30,000 heads of cattle from South Africa. The Ministry of Finance reduced the import duty on powdered milk, and he pulled out of our discussions. So there are policy issues, policy conflicts that affect our ability to be food secure in this sector. And we've been working on trying to resolve that. I believe that if we can be self-sufficient in just milk production, we'd be able to save as much as $1.2 to $1.5 billion. Our protein consumption per capita, Ndidi has made the point about a glass of milk in the morning, which is now the exclusive preserve of the middle and upper classes, which should be part of everyone's daily breakfast. So we started from day one by saying we need to do something about the livestock sector, and we had to approach the issue from looking at several policies that would enable us to achieve that. Ndidi has observed that our cows produce 1 to 2 liters per day. If we can just raise that to 15 to 20 liters per day, we automatically multiply the income of the herders by 10 times, and that will have significant impact on livelihoods, as well as I said, the levels of security that we face with the herdsmen. So what did we do? What we did first, as Ndidi said, is to say that we need a one-stop shop. We need an investment promotion agency that will work with investors to ensure that whatever we want to do, we get done very quickly. Livestock investments require land, they require a set of policies, they require security and so on. And we don't want our investors running from pillar to post to various government agencies trying to get those. So with the help of DFID, we created the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, which is a one-stop shop. You go there, you want to invest, and they get you the land, they get you all the approvals you need. You don't need to be interfaced with so many government agencies. So we did that. We also initiated through the National Economic Council the National Livestock Transformation Program. As I said, we saw that we saw it. We saw the livestock sector as the key to resolving not only economic challenges, but also security challenges. And it is on the basis of the security challenges we are facing, cattle rustling and banditry and farmer-herder clashes, that the National Economic Council worked on creating the NLTP in 2018. Kaduna State government was a major part of it. I was one of the 6 or 7 governors that worked under the leadership of the Vice President to formulate that policy, which is being implemented. It's being piloted in 3 states as we speak. And what we did in Kaduna was to take the NLTP and adapt it to our context, because we didn't believe that there would be a one-size-fits-all kind of framework. We believe that the challenges faced by each state differ, and there are nuances that need to be addressed. And in Kaduna State, from our experience, there are 2 key issues that we felt the NLTP did not quite address around viability and sustainability. The government cannot continue to pump money into this. You must design something that is viable in the medium term and also sustainable in the long term. So we adapted the NLTP to pilot a project that we believe has both the components of viability and sustainability while addressing the fundamental issues around livelihood and security. And I want to say that we've had some successes so far. My team and I visited the UK and Denmark to initiate discussion with Allah Foods, and we've made significant progress. As we speak, we have a public-private partnership with Allah, where we are developing the Damao Household Milk Farm project in Kubau local government. What we did essentially was to take one of our 14 grazing reserves, the entire grazing reserve, and convert it into a household milk farm project. With Allah as the technical partner and equity investor, Allah is putting in 2.96 billion naira. Kaduna State government is putting 1.25 billion naira, and we're borrowing 10.45 billion naira from the Central Bank of Nigeria to finance this project. This project will provide livelihoods to at least 10,000 families that will be involved in milk production. And Allah will be the technical partner. Our hope is that we'll begin first with milk production, and all the steps that Ndidi has outlined, from artificial insemination, crossbreeding, have vet clinics there. We'll also develop housing and so on. Our goal is first to sedentarize the itinerant herdsmen, because their movement up and down the country has caused security problems, has led to clashes and all kinds of issues that every Nigerian is aware of. So by getting 10,000 families to settle and showing that there is an alternative way to engage in livestock production, not going up and down between Lagos and Katsina and causing problems along the way, would begin to essentially modernize livestock production and move away from what the Fulanis like to call their way of life. We want to make it an economic activity, not just a way of life that is unsustainable. So we have made progress. The ALA project, the Damar Milk Household Milk Farm project, is being implemented as we speak. And we have 3 other projects under discussion, again, all around dairy production and the entire livestock value chain, but starting with milk first. Because we believe that when you start with milk and you get the herdsmen to multiply their incomes just from milk production, you'll begin to address the issues in the value chain. The Fulanis don't like selling their cattle. They only sell those that are exhausted, the exhausted bulls and the exhausted cows. They essentially live off the milk. So that's where to begin. We have 2 to 3 other projects under discussion. We have United Green, which is a UK-based agribusiness that is also interested in coming into Kaduna State to do something very similar to what we are doing with ALA, but going further by doing pasture production and as well as beef and so on and so forth. We are talking to IDL, Integrated Dairies, one of the partners of Sahel, to do something else in Kaduna. Again, we are talking about taking a significant part of one of our grazing reserves for IDL to develop, again, to produce more milk. There is also another group that is more interested in beef production, a partnership between the Dantata family and a UK partner that we are currently in discussions. So this is what we've tried to do in Kaduna State. We believe that in addition to being a leading agricultural state in terms of crop production, we're the leading producers of maize, soybeans, ginger, and tomatoes, and we are second in sorghum and many other products. We believe that we can regain our leadership in livestock production. And we are lucky to have partners like Sahel. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been very active in Kaduna. They've been very supportive. The World Bank has been very, very supportive. The European Union. Everyone wants to solve this problem. And I'm happy that we are having this webinar today so that we can dig deeper into the issues and what more we can do to solve this problem. As I said, resolving the issues in milk production is not just a source of livelihoods. It's not just a source of jobs and opportunity. It's not just a source of gender equality, but resolving a major security problem that has bedeviled a large part of the country. Thank you. I wish you an excellent webinar today. I'm going to be here till the end because I want to learn as much as I can. And I'm sure all my colleagues in the Kaduna State government are online to catch as much as they can as possible. Thank you for inviting me, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. These were great remarks, and we applaud your vision, your passion, and the tremendous support you've provided to this sector. We will continue to root for Kaduna State, and you're such an example to other states. So thank you so much. I just want to mention there are some questions in the Q&A box for your team to complete. We don't unfortunately have time to have you address those questions directly, but please have somebody on your team go in and complete those questions. We'll be very honored to have them do so. Thank you again, Governor. We value your time and your presence. Thank you very much. So we're going to move swiftly to our first panel of the day. And leading this panel is Dr. Audu Grema. Dr. Grema needs very little introduction in the food and agriculture landscape in Nigeria. For the last 30 years, he's been leading initiatives through DFID, Palladium, and most recently, as the Senior Program Officer for Agriculture for the Gates Foundation. I have a lot of admiration and respect for Dr. Audu Grema because of his passion and dedication to this sector. He has a phenomenal panel that he's going to be moderating, and the theme is the role of policy in catalyzing the growth of the Nigerian dairy industry. So I'll just hand it over to Dr. Grema. Welcome, Dr. Grema.
Thank you, Ndidi. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And this is a very popular webinar. I noticed we already have about 93 or 94 participants, which is really very untypical these days. This presentation, context-setting presentation by Your Excellency has been really compelling and imbued with lots of statistics and local level information about some of the programs taking place in Kaduna. And we really thank His Excellency for setting the scene nicely for us for this panel. I don't think we need another context-setting background before we commence the panel. And we sincerely thank you for the passion with which you presented those. Let me just introduce the panelists. I've got 5 panelists, very nicely mixed between men and women. I'll start with Dr. Andrew Kwasari, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture, and he's also coordinating the Project for Agricultural Coordination and Execution, PESCA, who sits in the Office of the Vice President, and we're also involved with that. And it is the institutional home for the National Livestock Transformation Program, as well as the Ag Mechanization's Green Alternative. So Andrew will talk to us about that. And then we move on to Dipo Adegoke from the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Investment. He's an Assistant Director in the Commodities and Export Department of the Ministry. And this is where the commodity and industry-based associations seek registration and also forge ahead in terms of policy dynamics. And we hear perspective from Dipo as to how that is happening and how we can make it even better going forward. Dr. Mero Ahmed Amishi is the current Commissioner for Agriculture from Yobe State. Hugely experienced woman, my sister. The experience she has had, this is her 3rd time of being a commissioner in Yobe, so she can tell you more about that. And we would like to hear some of the state level activities in the dairy and livestock sector that Yobe is planning to push forward, and the ones that they're currently doing. Another very powerful woman as well in our right is the Commissioner for Agriculture, Kaduna State, Hajia Halima Lawal, who is also on the panel. And as you've heard, hugely dynamic woman as introduced by Ndidi. And we like her passion, and we would like to hear her view about what's going to happen in terms of the dairy sector development and the critical role of policy. And our last panelist has an unusual background. He started his life as a banker, and then he moved into dairy. Alhaji MD Abubakar is he has quite a presence and very, very forthright dairy processor, and he chairs the Commercial Dairy Ranchers Association of Nigeria, Kodaran, and he's also a firm believer of local sourcing of milk and milk products. We call him MD for short, and in all convenings around dairy and livestock, you will see MD Abubakar willingly attending. So this is the retinue of very interesting panelists I have. The game plan is I will ask each of you to make your presentation based on a question that I will try my best to frame for you for 5 minutes. And that allows us to go through everybody and then allow for another parting shot from each of you for maybe 2 to 3 minutes at the end. That way we can use the 40 minutes exhaustively. So I think this is the game plan. If panelists are clear with the process, I will ask the participants to please type in your questions in the Q&A chat box. We'll have a stock take of those questions. And if we don't have time, of course, for responding to questions, administratively, we'll get the responses and the Sahel Secretary will make sure that your questions are answered. So let's make it as lively as we can. I would like to follow the list the way I've introduced these gentlemen and ladies, and invite Dr. Andrew Kwasari. Dr. Andrew, His Excellency has mentioned the National Livestock Transformation Plan, which is under the husbandry of the National Economic Council, and some key governors, including himself, have really partook in developing and modeling this program. So as a response to this particular theme for this panel, how can policy assist the dairy sector? Can you start your delivery by giving the participants a flavor of what NLTP is and how it is going to play out in terms of shaping policy?
Can you use another device?
Dr.
Andrew is not online right at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. We can come back to him when he comes back, and I can move straight to Deepo Adegoke from Trade Investments. And Deepo, this is a very important attendance from your ministry. The policy sector has a lot of different fragmented sources. We hear of dairy policy from Trade Investment and from FMAD and sometimes from central banks. So can you speak to us about the institutional home for policy affecting the dairy sector, and how might we attempt to fuse these different policy sources together so that we can make a positive dent on the dairy sector? 5 minutes? Mr. Adegoke? Hello?
Hello, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Please don't mind the name on the screen. I'm Deepo Adegoke from the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. If we're talking about a policy, there is need indeed for a practicable and workable policy for the dairy industry in Nigeria. But the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, our mandate is to first identify the stakeholders in the industry or subsector and bring them together. We nurture them and get them registered as an umbrella body, just one umbrella body for the whole dairy subsector in Nigeria. Once we are able to organize them, they have national executive council members, and we are able to begin to work on them to develop the dairy industry along the value chain, from production to processing to marketing and export. When this is done, we can now talk about having a policy, because all those who are involved in the subsector have to come together to, to work on the policy and, own the policy and see how the subsector can be developed to the benefit of all. I want to stop at this moment.
Okay, Mr. Adegoke, we will come back to you. You've saved us 2 minutes, which I think will help us in the end. We'll come back to you while you ponder about this different policy instructions coming from different parts of the government. Maybe there is a plan from your ministry to fuse this so that we have a centralized policy direction. But we'll come back to you on that. And let me move to Dr. Mero Ahmed Amshi from Yobe State, our Commissioner for Agriculture. And I think given that you are a commissioner the third time in a row, not in a row, but at least in the last 15, 20 years, the experiences you bring to this webinar is palpable. Everybody will be keen to hear. So can you share with us some of the developments and investments and plans you've had in Yobe State that will help the livestock and dairy sector, both the ones that has already started and the ones you have for the future? For 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Dr. Grema, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. And I wish to express.
I think you are breaking up.
The present administration deem it fit to make agriculture priority sector, and to that effect, a summit on revitalization of agriculture was held, which the committee was set up for to ensure implementation and recommendation from the summit. We all know that Yobe has over 10 million livestock population, including cattle, sheep, goats, camel. But due to the insecurity, as a result of insurgency, the pace of its growth remains rather narrow, and the growth in rural economy remains below average. However, creative mixes of sector policies and programs that can provide an enabling environment for the sector development and private sector engagement, large smallholder farmers that includes mostly women and youth, can favorably influence the rate and shape of the growth. What the state did, first of all, is to identify the major challenges in the sector and try to propose solution by providing a state policy to how the livestock sector could be enhanced, particularly the dairy aspects. The first, we've identified four genetic potentials of the livestock and the crop-farmer conflicts in the state. These are few problems we've encountered, and also there is a serious cultural taboo on consumption of milk from other sources, despite its health and nutritional value, especially from goats. So, and the substantive nature of the production has also been a problem. In this regard, the state government had made a proposal to key into the National Livestock Transformation Program, and also to help the crop farmer and cattle producers conflicts. We started demarcating cattle routes and water points, and also demarcate some of our grazing reserve, and a deliberate trampling into farm and areas by the herdsmen has also been reduced, because a committee has been set up in all the local government areas, the ward areas in the state, to see these problems are being reduced. And another important thing that I want to mention here is to see that in addressing these numerous challenges that have enumerated, we see it very important to have a state policy to boost milk production, as well as other dairy products, and is in progress. However, most of the policy measures that could support dairy development are not under the Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources. That is the Livestock Department. Rather, they are the responsibilities of other ministries, such as Commerce, Trade, Health, and Industry. This implies that in planning process, other stakeholders need to be brought in early into the planning process. As a result, a host of other considerations need to play into the decision on how to support the sector. While socio-equity issues can be resolved, recognizing that there is adverse set of consumers and producers, the impact of policies on environment also need to be considered. Thus, the more difficult challenge is to identify policy measures that can effectively respond to policy objectives. In this regard, and as part of our achievements, the ministry, the state government through the Ministry of Agriculture in collaboration with the Nigerian Women in Agricultural Research and Development have organized the World Milk Day celebration prior today, where the direct stakeholders were invited, displays their product, and it's a way of creating awareness to the female women, female Fulani milk vendors and other dairy farmers. Cooperative groups were also formed, and the women are really happy, and they want to participate. And as a policy of the state government, it's going to establish milk markets, providing clean, hygienic shade where those women can sell their milk. We therefore, on this note, I therefore fully support the strategic framework of Sahel Consult in advising local dairy production in Nigeria, and look forward to better mainstreaming dairy into cooperation with other states of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mero. Thank you so much. Thank you for the passion with which you presented your take on opportunities and as well as existing programs and initiatives. I will now move to Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture in Kaduna State, Hajia Halima Lawal. Honorable Commissioner, His Excellency has really taken the thunder out of perhaps what you share with us, but nonetheless, we would like to hear particularly all these huge examples of investments and plans that the governor has outlined. How might a state level policy support the institutionalization of these initiatives, and how do you see the role of policy supporting the growth of this sector in Kaduna State?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Your Excellency, members of the panel, the organizers. I'm very pleased to be here on the commemoration of the International. And I want to thank all dairy actors, all dairy chain actors, for ensuring that we have supply of milk, even though my governor said it's for the middle class. So, but I'd like us to toast to Milk Day. Dr. Graham, I said it succinctly. The governor has taken the thunder out of my comments. Be that as me, we know that policy is the prescription that we have to give to desired outcomes, so that there will be a strategic plan to achieve the desired outcomes in any activity that we want to embark upon. Kaduna State has been a trailblazer. Even like His Excellency said, when the administration came in, it recognized that dairy was, or livestock as a whole, was not on the front burner. And it's a major source of wealth, nutrition, employment, and it even supports the local currency. Traditionally, women are involved in milk sales, and with that, they take care of their families. So the government came with a deliberate policy, primarily to institutionalize investment. That's why the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency was instituted, to channel investment to the sectors that are considered vital to our development and our well-being as a whole. So in addition, we gave a favorable investment climate so that private sector could thrive. That's why I suppose we are having these partnerships with companies like Sahel. We have done with ALA in the Damo Milk Farm project. These are deliberate actions that would support the building of value chains. Our consultative approach has also led to us having developed one of the most organized grazing reserves, if you have heard of Ladduga. So we are trailblazers even before the focus came to the importance of developing the dairy chain. Our ease of doing business has supported private sector to thrive. That's why in Kaduna now, We have seen a lot of livestock and livestock supporting entities springing up. In her submission, Ndidi mentioned Surge Foods. We have Zaidi Farms. All these are as a result of our deliberate policies that we had put in place so that our partnerships are support in infrastructure. We have built roads to some of these locations. We have provided electricity. We have done we have provided power. And in addition, we even have what we call the Kaduna Livestock Regulatory Authority. That is another institution for quality control. So these are all policy actions that resulted in the desired outcomes. Of course, it's a long journey, we're still on it, but we're on the right track. We have also collaborated with World Bank donor agencies. You have heard of APILS, that's the Agro-Processing Productivity Enhancement and Livelihood Support Program. One of our focal commodities is dairy. Because we have recognized the importance of dairy, that's why when we're choosing the three commodities, besides maize for food, we also chose dairy for nutrition. So that has, besides the NLTP that His Excellency has mentioned, we have the appeals, like I said, we have gone into agreement with ALA, and even our small to medium scale dairy actors are not forgotten because we recognize the importance of stakeholder involvement and engagement. So our smallholder farmers, especially our women folk, we have trained them in milk processing, indirect pasteurization, and milk hygiene so that they can improve their incomes and their nutrition. Their children's well-being would also be guaranteed because once they have quality milk to sell, they have better incomes. When they have better incomes, they can take care of their kids. Again, we have gone into literacy programs because we have noticed that adoptive technology is taking too long because people do not have the requisite skills to appreciate that you need to have some level of literacy to be able to adopt some practices. So good hygienic practices, good farming practices. We have also promoted the consumption of milk. When this administration came, before the National Food Feeding Program came up, milk was part of the diet, and I hope that we can go back to that, and also that the federal government could take this as a deliberate policy to include milk in our diet. And Dr. Graham, I must say here that we're always talking about milk and we think it's only cow milk. I think we should also look at goat milk and camel milk. That way we can increase production of milk, ensure the nutrition of our citizens, not only our children, and bring in more actors into the value chain. Because if we do not have that wide sourcing, we're just going to limit ourselves to cow milk, and then there's going to be a lot of pressure on that. Through our collaborations with those some research institutes like NAPRI in Zaria, we have, through our ALA venture, we have also done artificial insemination and breed improvement. When we're doing some awareness for the ALA program, we encouraged women to come up, and women were interested not just to come and sell milk at the markets. They were really interested in owning their own breed. They were interested in owning land and even living on that complex. So we are also looking at the totality, not just for you to be in that traditional setting of I'm always the person that sells the milk. No, you need to start thinking, moving from just a retailer, but also becoming a producer. So that's why along the value chain, we're looking at our producers, we're looking at our processors, we're looking at our marketers. We have also encouraged market linkages between our various stakeholders so that you can have offtake. I think I saw a question here, somebody was talking about offtake because of the cold chain. supply is very weak. That is what the government is doing too through our infrastructure and investments. We are going to be providing support to the national grid so that we can be sure that when you have this produce, it can move from the producer to the consumer in a hygienic and most safe manner.
Honorable Commissioner,
yes.
Sorry, now that we have the other fifth panelist on with us, maybe you need to round up so that we can give him a chance.
I thought I would take the time of the others. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioner.
So anyway, okay, I'll stop here. Then maybe when we come back, we'll do the parting show. Thank you. Too.
Indeed. Thank you for those examples and the enthusiasm with which you shared the experiences as well in Kaduna State. Alaji MD Abubakar is a dairy processor. I think it will have been unfair to have this panel without somebody who is already in the thick of it, and he can share with us what, from the processor's perspective, what they need to see policy-wise to develop the dairy sector. And besides that, he's also an industry advocate, and he chairs the BMO, the Business Membership Organization for the dairy sector. So, MD, what will you like to see? I know you've always spoken about this topic in different fora. This is an opportunity. Tell us from a point of view of a processor. In 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grema. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and happy World Milk Day. I think all the participants, all the speakers have spoken well, and they've touched all on the upstream and the midstream sector of the value chain. The area I think I would like to touch is the downstream sector, which is the marketing and the enabling environment for people that produce milk will be able to sell competitively in Nigeria. If all these goodies are available, good cow producing 100 liters of milk, beautiful infrastructure, good advocacy, fantastic technical partnership with foreign companies. At the end of the day, you produce a milk that will only go to waste. It adds up to waste of resources, energy, and time, and it will lead us to nowhere. I'm sure everyone knows for the last 50 to 60 years, with the establishment of some research institutes, particularly the National Animal Production Research Institute in Zaria, we've been working as a country to see how we develop cows that can produce higher milk yield. And also we've been trying as much as we can to research and put money to see to it that people get into the production of dairy. We've not been successful for the last 50 years. I think it's time for a paradigm shift. And this is the time to stop looking at the upstream where the production takes place, stop looking at the midstream where the collection takes place, and look at the downstream where the marketing takes place. And I can tell you that without doing anything in the upstream or midstream, if you are able to bring a policy that will encourage investment, you will see people trooping into dairy production. As it is today, what I have heard, what I have seen, what I know it's been happening with all the governmental institutions coming up new, I have not seen anything that will encourage dairy production. What you need to do is, how do you encourage private sector investment? And from within Nigeria, I don't think any foreigner will come and invest into dairy for you when he is established by foreign cooperative farmers to only be a market. That's all you are. Then if you are under the illusion that a farmer establishes a company to sell his product to Nigeria will not come and develop you in order to kill his own business, I think it will be unfair to them. So you have to be very frank and sincere and look at it as it is, that we're only a market to foreign dairy companies, and we can only change that if we encourage indigenous development. And you can't encourage indigenous development if the market for indigenous development is not there. As it is today, I would like to talk about the cows that we have in this country. As at 1999 census, we have over 20 million cows. If you look at these cows, only take let's say 5 million of the cows are those that are productive, are those that are producing milk. With the worst case scenario, each one producing 2 liters of milk. You are having 10 million liters in production per day. Your consumption in Nigeria is about 5 million. You have excess of 5 million liters. And common sense economics, anything that is being hawked on the street looking for buyers shows that it's in excess. We have our women Fulanis moving around asking for as they don't know, which means they have it in excess and coming. But in Kano, where we started from 20 years ago, I'm happy to say that we started the revolution of dairy, and I'm happy to see that it's coming to, in my own lifetime, we're having a discussion like this. And I can tell you that the rate of women carrying milk to the market in the communities we operate has reduced drastically, and the children are going to school. And this is at the upstream sector. And they have the milk, they have the cows. So if you have the 20 million cows in Nigeria, out of which 5 million are producing milk, and you are able to collect the milk, that's all that is missing. Harnessing this milk in the hygienic condition, take it to the processors in a wholesome manner, and then get it processed and get into the market where it can sell. As it is today, the cost of producing a liter of milk is about 300 naira. Selling price of milk produced by Allah in Denmark or Friesland in Netherlands in Kano market is about 120 naira. Look at the difference. How can we compete? And the only way other countries are doing it, see Vietnam, they have Friesland working there. See Indonesia, you have Nestle working there. See Kenya, you have all these multinationals. How do they operate there? It's not the way they are operating here. Before you import powder into Kenya, dairy powder, you have to pay 60% tariff. In Nigeria, you pay 5% only. So as it is today, the policy encourage importation, discourage local production. It doesn't make any sense for you to produce and you cannot get the market for it. And the only way the market could be established and sustained is if you have the right policy. And the policy must be directed towards encouraging local production, discouraging imports. His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, has said it all. This is a clear case. Somebody came with the intention of establishing 30,000 number of cows farm. In the process, the country reduced tariff to 5%. I've never seen this anywhere in the world. And the man took off. We are also existing because we are only in a margin-driven market. We are in a niche market. We produce only yogurt, fresh milk for the elites. By the time we go down to attack the mass market, we can't compete with these imports. We can't. So we are restricted to 5,000 to 10,000 liters production per day. And it has been established in my farm that you can bring in local cows, cross-fertilize, and have an improved bloodline that could give you about 50 to 20 liters of milk per day. And at the end of the day, these same cows will be able to resist the tropical disease that kills your Frisians and other exotic breeds. So please, Dr. Grema, if my time is up, just tell me so that I can keep quiet. Otherwise, I will always. Yeah,
I think you need to round up because we're hitting the 11 o'clock.
So at the end of the day, the most important thing is the upstream is where the production takes place, and that's where the artificial insemination happens. This is only to increase your cow from 2 liters to 30 liters. I have demonstrated that your 2-liter cow is adequate to feed the country. Only if you harness it. 100 liter producing cow without harnessing the milk and getting into the factory and getting into the market, it doesn't make any sense. The midstream, that is the establishment of milk collection, establishment of cold chain infrastructure, is zero in this country. There is zero investment in that. You need to encourage investment in this sector. This sector, you cannot attract any investment if the market is not guaranteed. The downstream is where I think we need to work on, and there is need for a policy. Once this is fixed, it will automatically transform all other sectors. As I always said, I have not seen MTN organizing seminar to encourage them to come and invest. All you needed was to provide enabling environment and the market guaranteed, and they came and established their mass, and here we are. So the same thing with dairy. You don't need to call anybody for any seminar. You don't need to organize Fulanis to come and tell them the goodies. They know the goodies and they can see it. All you need to do is guarantee their market. I can guarantee you that is the best commercial solution to the harder farmers' clashes. That's the best commercial solution to the current kidnapping issues we're having with our Fulani brethren, this is the best solution we can have in human development index and even empowerment. All over the world, the
Thank
best
you, MD.
development, the best empowerment is through dairy. And that's why you have the cash cow statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MD. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, the passion is palpable. You've raised some very big issues. We will have to come back when we do the final shots. Tariff regime reducing to 5%, and issues of downstream support or lack of it. While we've been at this, Andrew has joined us. I did introduce you, Andrew, earlier, the Senior Special Assistant to the President of Agriculture, sent to the Office of the Vice President precisely because there are two big programs coordinated from there. One is the National Livestock Transformation Plan. The other is the Ag Mechanization Green Alternative. Andrew, we would like to hear your take on how the NLTP programs and content will advance the course of dairy development. Before you join us, lots of issues have been put across, and just now, the issue of cattle population. Yes, the last RIM survey in the late 90s, anchored from Kaduna from NLPD, said we have 20 million heads of cattle. We don't know 30 years later whether they are still 20 million or less. I wonder if the NLTP will also, in the course of its implementation, provide us with some metrics, data metrics that can inform policy. So can you give us a glimpse of what the NLTP will do, and then zero it down to dairy and perhaps even the livestock statistics in 5 minutes? It's a tall order I'm giving you, but I'm sure you can do it. Andrew? Okay.
Thank you very much, Graham. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very much, Graham. Thank you. I've been struggling with settling in the office to join the call. Thank you. I want to just take it off from the last speaker. I have not had, I had a bit of Governor El-Rufai, and I had the commissioner, and then I had MD now. This is very interesting. So I don't need to bother us with the statistics and the basis for where we are in the dairy sector or livestock today, but I want to look at it from the perspective that Nigeria really has the key catalytic role that it needs to play in order to develop this sector. And this involves really all of that we've talked about from policy perspective. What I see is, how do we organize the sector? How do we organize capital, talent, knowledge, and fiscal assets? So this organization is what is lacking. And to do this organization, we need to be clear that the role of the private sector, whether private capital in particular, whether it is domestic or foreign, is key. We just need it to come in, and they need to come in order to see that the transformation happens. And within this, for this to happen, we need an organized regulatory framework that sets out the policies clearly, that sets out the coordination, but allows operation to the appropriately organize and incentivize private sector. And this is very key, therefore, that we should take into cognizance. The policy framework for NLTP was built really to, how do we envision the future? How do we prepare the strategic aspirations and frameworks that will enable the emergence of this competitive at scale marketplace that we need in order to deal with these issues, and to set the rules that are necessary to negotiate the provisions of certain public goods, particularly from the state governors that own the land. And then how do we then deal with the credit guarantee perspective? So this is the vision that set out the NLTP, and I can explain that with all of this, it has to be done holistically. It cannot be done just taking one part or the other. And we have seen a lot of policy divergence, the inability to converge. So it's not the policy that's the issue in Nigeria, it's how to implement the policy, and it's very difficult. And this, if we begin to look at today, what critically has happened, why have the policies not been implemented? implemented. You have fair share of blame to all, the public, the private sector, and everything. But we need to understand that we are not going to get to anywhere without it. So cherry picking will not solve our problem in any way, and particularly having understood the importance of dairy, like in the current administration. We have seen the NLTP, we have seen also some financing, some monetary policies from other organs of government. But really, policy must remain neutral and must not pick winners. Instead, policy must just make sure that it is an advisor to the various parties, helping orchestrate a profound shift in the belief, the behavior, and therefore the outcomes of dairy farming. So back to that, what NLTP then has done is we have to follow through with all of this. So from the land issue, how do we solve the land issue? This is a public matter. And we said we just need to return to the grazing reserves in the 19 northern states and other private and public lands, farm settlements in other states. We looked at 3 states that have moved forward: Adamawa, Nasarawa, and Plateau. 15 grazing reserves with excess of 300,000 hectares of land. This land is fundamental first. Whether or not we have 2 million cattle, even if they give us 1 million liter, 20 liters, let's say all of them give us a liter of milk, does not translate that this milk will get to the market, does not translate that this milk will actually get into our nutrition value chain or supply chain. So it's a whole kind of organization where we need to be sure that everything that we produce is in a way that it is enhanced down the value chain, from the upstream to the downstream. Everybody, as of today, there is no that single decision or coordination where people meet. So NLTP tries to do that. People have told me, but NLTP is a bit complex. That's why people don't listen to you, cannot afford to go all the way. But I think NLTP becomes complex when you try to cherry pick some component and not the whole of it. NLTP becomes complex when you try not to do everything. And I've seen that we have to make a choice. NLTP insists that the future remains that we have to enable the major players today to be key. So the question before Nigerian policymakers is, are we gunning for milk sufficiency or in production and even in consumption, or even, or are we gaining for a sustainable economic evolution and transformation of a subsector that is critical to livelihoods? So then you will see that the paths we take forward are quite different. Establishment of the large commercial farms necessarily then become only a catalyst to hand-holding the smallholder farmers. So we must always come with the pastoralists. How do we give them this knowledge? How do we help them? How do we organize them so that whatever we do is transformative from within? And we need to always live with that. So we have different policies for different things. Milk self-sufficiency can be achieved through many ways, but one sure way is that a decentralized system that takes into cognizance all of the smallholder producers. So how do we organize them? And I think there is no better time to discuss this than now, because COVID-19 has shown that wherever you over-concentrate the supply chain of a particular food commodity in the hands of few, once it is struck, just as COVID-19 has proven with meat supply in the US and other countries, you get into big trouble. So I think the beauty of NLTP is that with all its seeming complexities, we have to go back to the drawing board to use it over the next 10 years or 8 years that remains for its lifespan, to really organize that there is a level playing ground, that policy is neutral, that everybody is welcome around the table, and that we secure all of the fiscal assets, we secure what public needs to do, the issues of productive infrastructure of roads, power, water supply, and water sourcing. Then you leave the rest, including the cold chain, to the private investor, because he understands the value of it.
Andrew, would you like to round up? Because we need the 5 minutes for parting shots. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think, so basically what I'm saying, we have a platform with the NLTP, but we all need to come around it I think when policymakers, particularly during implementation, pick it one side or the other and run with it, like providing finances. Finance is very good, but it has to be tied to the whole. So it's a whole kind of approach. And then there's the knowledge gap. So I will round up by saying we need to organize capital, we need to organize talent, we need to organize everything that will help us achieve all of these fiscal assets and all of that. And I think that is what the NLTP hopes to do. On the issue of the numbers of livestock or whatever, 20 million or not, there has not been any statistics. We are trying. Now we've done 15 grazing reserves and we know the fixed numbers within these 15 grazing reserves, but that's nothing. We have to do all of these, all of the 19 northern states to really know what's the number today. And we are also hoping to do a kind of transborder movement or studies on the dynamics of the October through December inward influx of transhumans and April-May outflux, at least repeat it twice to understand what's the dynamics of the foreign heads to
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Just before I give people a minute each to put a parting shot to the panel, to the participants, if you have any. If you don't, you don't have to. I would like to invite you to look at the questions and answer chats. If you have a minute, you can also respond to some of these questions directed specifically at some panelists. So, Mr. Agdogoke, what will you say, one parting shot from what you have heard this morning in the area of policy? Can you give us in 1 minute, one parting shot that speaks to the intention of the Federal Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry?
Can I get you again?
We just want you to give us one closing remark, just one from what you have heard from participants and who are writing some very copious questions in the questions box. Can you give us in 1 minute just one closing remark that is important to what we've discussed so far, if you have? If you don't, we can jump.
As a closing remark, I want to reiterate that it is necessary to have an organized, subsector in the sense of having a national association. I know Alhaji MD Abakar has been working on that, but you need to carry other stakeholders along. When we have that in place, then we can talk about, stakeholders working together to produce a workable and a practical policy for the dairy industry in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mero, do you have any closing remark, just one issue, quickly?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. The major policy direction that I will suggest will include, just as he has just said, better organization of local meat production to get the local producers better sensitized and get aware, particularly in Yobe State, which I know is a rural state, and breed improvement, and also improvement of critical infrastructure such as feeder road, electricity supply, and water supply. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Haja Halima, anything we should live with for Kaduna?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Kaduna State is #1 in ease of doing business. We are open to collaborations and partnerships, not just with medium and large scale farmers, but also with small scale interested parties in the livestock industry, because I'm not going to limit it, Doctor, to only the dairy, but the whole livestock subsector. We're interested in developing it, and that we hope that we can have a real stakeholder involvement and segmentation so that everybody is carried along and everybody gives its own support so that we can grow the industry together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioner. MD Abubakar, any parting shots either on Kodoran or on your favorite topic, which is downstream development?
Yes, I've just gone through the chat and I saw a question by one Dr. YM from Niles, and yes. He was asking if I'm saying that there's no market for local dairy milk. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, there's market, but we are not competitive. In a nutshell, if you go to the market, you see a local dairy produced by a Nigerian farmer, and you see a dairy imported from Netherlands, it's much cheaper to buy dairy from Netherlands than to buy from Nigerian farmer. Besides, Nigerian farmer must come to a liquid and it has a 10 days shelf life, while the one you buy in tin and in powdered will take you months. So it doesn't make sense for you to buy Nigerian dairy product against imported dairy products. Only policy will make this well, as it happens in other countries. And he is asking me, is there any policy on the downstream I think that can work? Yes, there's a low-hanging fruit in all these policies. We don't have to look at it holistically at the go. We can do what happened to rice. We can do what happened to cement in 1999, when cement was imported 75%, 25% locally produced, and a single policy reversed that to almost 100% production locally, and even we go into export. So we can do that with dairy. You can, God forbid, you can have only God can you can only imagine what will have happened to our rice consumption if COVID-19 made us dependent on imported rice. So I don't want that to happen to dairy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What remains for me is to thank the panelists for such a wonderful and incisive contribution and the passion with which you took your take in turns. And this has been a very revealing panel. We need to go into the last panel of the day, and some of the answers to the questions you're asking in the box might well be addressed in the next session. So I will hand over to Olumide, or is it Ndidi, who will take us to the next one?
Thank you so much, Dr. Grema, for your excellent moderation. A lot of issues have been raised, which I think we're all noting. And thankfully, this is one of many, many more conversations we're going to have as part of Aldine, because we recognize that an enabling environment and enabling policies are foundational for our success in this sector. I'm going to pass it on to Olumide right now. He's going to be moderating the next panel. Olumide is one of the distinguished team members at Sahel, and he's in charge of our policy work. And he is going to be moderating a panel with 5 very distinguished individuals who span the full spectrum, and I'm just going to hand over to Olumide, but also crave your indulgence that we can give them a little more time, given that we're running a bit late. Thank you. Olumide, please take over.
Thank you very much, Ndidi, for that introduction, and good morning to everyone listening, and thank you for joining. So like Ndidi rightly mentioned, this panel discussion will be on how a developed dairy industry contributes to increased productivity, women empowerment, and improved nutrition outcomes. It will go to highlight the critical importance of dairy in improving the livelihoods of those we have in their communities. And with me on the panel, like Ndidi rightly mentioned earlier, we have our partner and Professor Alhaji Sanusi Abdullahi. We'll also have Aminu Yanko from Sebori Farms. And then we'll have Babajide Adebisi, who is a public health nutritionist and project team lead of TechnoServe Aldin. And I have my colleagues, Jumai Bapa, who is the gender advisor, and Fisaya Kayode, the livestock associate. So I would start by giving an overview of why we are here today and why this panel is important, by taking the Aldin program as a microcosm of what we're going to be discussing today. So as Ndidi highlighted at the beginning, Aldin is catalyzing a vibrant dairy sector in an inclusive way by improving the livelihoods, productivity, nutrition, and empowerment of smallholder women dairy farmers and the communities in which we live. One of the critical things that we look to do is to increase productivity by working with smallholder dairy farmers and providing them with the right training and the right inputs, and help their productivity, that's their milk yield, to increase over time. And not just increase in terms of milk yield, but also increase in terms of quality, so that they can be integrated into the formal sector. Aldin looks to bridge that gap between the informal sector and the formal sector, allowing dairy companies such as L&Z, Sebori Farms, Sarge Foods, IDL, and others who are part of the program to be able to buy milk directly from this pastoralist. This integration into this formal sector would also lead to increased income and productivity for this smallholder dairy households. Another component of our day, which is critical, is nutrition education, because we know that it is not complete if their well-being is not, development is not complete if their well-being is not improved. So there's a component on the program that has to do with providing them with good training and good hygiene, the right kind of foods to eat, and how they can diversify their food options to ensure that they have a well-balanced, nutritious diet. Collectively, all these interventions will lead to an improved livelihood for smallholder dairy farmers. So with that said, I would like to pass on the mic to dairy processor, that is Alhaji Sanusi Abdullahi. He's the CEO of Saj Foods Limited. Alhaji Abdullahi, please, thank you for joining us today. And we welcome that you made our time to speak to us about some of the issues that you're encountering in your backward integration initiatives. So we'd like you to please tell us a bit more about Saj Foods, especially as it relates to your backward integration activities and why you joined the Alden program and where you look to take this in the coming months and years.
Thank you, Mr. Olimide, for having me. First of all, I have to commend my state governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, for his passion on dairy and being the keynote on this occasion. And my commissioner, Honorable Commissioner of Agriculture, Hajia Halima Lawal, for her effort and then support toward the development of the dairy as a whole. Such foods cannot be where we are now without the support of the state governor. Our able state governor was the one that commissioned Such Foods 2015. It was the first company that he commissioned when he assumed office 2015. So that shows his compassionate passion that he has for the dairy. Then there was some advice he gave us, especially on the backward integration during the commissioning. So then my Excellency knows that Such Foods only produce 100% powdered milk. But the result is not now is not more. I think maybe there is gap. That is why when my Excellency was talking of those companies that he was collaborating in Kaduna State with, Such Foods was not there. Since 5 years back, Such Foods has already engaged in backward integration, which presently we are aggregating over 11,500 liters of milk from over 500 households within Zaria, Soba, Makarfi local government, and Giwa local government. And this has already has a great impact on improvement of livelihoods to those communities that we engage in aggregating this milk. What will interest you to know is that it is not only the Fulani ethnic group that participates in this supply chain. There are a lot of other tribes that even participate. And now, with coming of Sahel, the collaboration we are doing this, with Sahel, we are targeting to be receiving up to 60,000 liters daily in the next 5 years. Such Foods is the biggest indigenous company that has the biggest processing capacity, which our estimation is that we are targeting to accommodate more than 60,000 households to reach our maximum capacity of 144,000 liters. Presently, we are operating 60,000 liters. But because we just started the backward integration, so we are lacking a lot of infrastructures. The cooling chain was not there and other things, but we are trying to put them in place. So we have now we are presently accommodating, aggregating over 11,000 liters from the pastoralists within Zaria. So
Thank
this
you very
is what
much.
we are doing, Mr. Olumide.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you mentioned something around the impact on the lives of the households that you have integrated. Can you shed more light on what exactly you've seen from your experience has been the impact of the engagement with the local communities?
Yes, you know, one, we provide a stable market for them. Instead of them going to hawking, selling this bra and no, they come directly to supply to the company, and then we pay them directly. So they have more time for themselves, for their family, to cater for their family, while before they have to go for selling. Sometimes they went from morning to the evening before they came back. So they don't have even time to cater for their family upbringing. So, and this results are social vices. And we try to encourage them in such a way that to see that they put their children into school, which will give them some incentives. So these are what we have been doing to encourage them, and because of they are having this steady income, so they are trying to see how they can keep their cattle without migrating. And you know, this migrating, what is causing a lot of social vices, farmers hardship clashes is happening. But now, because they are getting this steady money, they don't want to move the cows anymore. They will use that money even in the rainy season when there is crops. There is crops. Then they can keep the cows. Then buying some concentrates to feed them, because they are getting the milk, and then the milk is bought at a good price for them. So it's better for them to supply to us than going and scouting. So by this, it's improving their livelihood so that they can cater for their families, feed it.
Thank you very much, Malaji Abdullahi. We'll be coming back to you for your final comments. We'll be going next to our partner in Adamawa State. That's Aminu Yanko. He's the director of Sebore Farms ZPZ. Aminu, it's good to have you on the program. Thank you for joining this conference.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So can you please tell us a bit about Sebore Farms and your plans, what you're doing in identifying smallholder dairy households, and what are your plans and why you joined the Aldo program?
Thank you, everyone. First, I would like to commend Sahel for organizing this webinar, and my warm regards to the governor and all the other dignitaries present here today. Sebore Farms, as you well may be aware, has been in existence since 1989. We're a dairy integrated household and an EPZ within the Northeast, located in Adamawa State. We have been participating within the dairy sector now, producing mainly yogurt products, Admirala products, for national consumption, and we do some export into Cameroon. I think we're the processors for Adamawa State, and we decided to join the Aladdin program to kind of put our own quota into national development and downward integration of the dairy sector. Within the farm, we have about 600 foreign breed cattle. We do artificial insemination. However, when we did the mapping 2018, 2019, we realized that we had about 50,000 cattle in and around our local government that had limited access to market. And that was one of the main driving forces in ensuring that we participated within the Aladdin program to almost connect these rural communities to a source of a market. Currently, we've already done farmer identification of about 4,500 households in and around Mayobalwa local government. And what our own observation has been is that they are extremely eager. Most of them have a lot of cattle population within them. I think the average cattle population within each household is about 30 to 45 cattle, which we think is a very large number. But we're kind of doing the, what we're trying to do now is to do the education in terms of, we don't believe that it's necessary for the Fulani to actually have a lot of cattle, because the feed requirements required to increase productivity of the cattle is greater. So the more cows you have without the actual commensurate feed requirement would always have dampen productivity. For us, from our own observation within the from our own observation within our own dairy operation, we realized that for you to get maximum milk productivity from a cow, you need to actually cultivate 1 hectare per cow. And that is quite a significant amount of number for you to then look at 20 million cattle population as is being reported. Then you need about 20 million hectares of land. And we believe that only if we find a way to target cows that actually have good genetics and can produce milk and feed them accordingly, can we start getting the savings required to properly downward integrate the dairy sector within Nigeria. So these are kind of the things we've already started cultivating about 300 hectares of land, outgrower land, for the farmers that have been mapped, and we're teaching them first and foremost feed and fodder, good feed and fodder practices in order to improve cow nutrition, quality of milk, sanitary measures of collecting milk, and then we're now going to be improving the logistics of collecting that milk. We just joined the Aladdin program, but we're a willing partner, and we see great potential within the sector moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aminu, for those insights. So just to ask a follow-up question with regards to the potential impact this would have on the communities where you are engaging. From your engagement so far, what do you think would be the impact of this going forward in the coming months and years?
I think from our current engagement, I think the impact is quite significant, because most of the communities that we have, that we went to, some of them have limited access to government. They've actually never seen a semblance of government. There's no semblance of market structures, in the sense that most of the milk produced is actually consumed by the household. Most of them have very limited income, in the sense that quite a number of the households have actually never seen 5,000 naira or 4,000 naira at one point in time. And from the negotiations we've entered with them for liters of milk and showing them educating them on the potential of offtake or steady offtake, they by themselves have started to realize that if they participate and go through the guidelines that have been set out to them in terms of feed management, the proper milk collection, and the logistics of handling milk, they realize that on average, even if they sell to us 10 liters of milk a day, they will be making 30,000 naira every month, which is the minimum wage. And I think this has actually further elucidated on their minds the potential of the cows, the potential of dairy being an income earner for them. And for us, we've uniquely used the traditional institution as the means by which we organize farmers and engage with them. By so doing, there's a saying, the cow is owned by the man, but the milk is owned by the female member of household. So we are also engaging quite deliberately with female members of household for them to be able to also have the resultant impact of income generation. We now know that the kids in the house would at least have a meal a day, and largely there will be income smoothing across the year. As you're aware, when we did our identification, most of the households said their peak production of milk is between May and August every year. So after August, they kind of enter a lull in terms of, since the dry season starts to set in, there's less quantities of feed to give the cow, which then leads to less productivity of each cow. And then they start to struggle in terms of income available to do other things. So this is the reason why we're actually teaching them feed management. We're teaching them silage production, which then increases the lifespan or shelf life of feed for the cattle. And we believe that if all these things are done alongside government policy, which I think the CBN has done quite a significant amount by reducing the access of forex for import of milk products. But we believe that we first and foremost within the Adamawa and Northeast environment have to start organizing our people around a trade, around industry, and around a reliable source of income. That you do realize that if you do your quota, you actually have access to income year on year. And we believe that the resultant effect will be a sense of belonging and a decrease in insecurity that plagues the area. So these are some of the things we've seen. And as we move forward, we'll be measuring working with Sahel, we'll be measuring the impact of this program moving forward. It's for 5 years and we're in month 3. And I believe it's a welcome development for the country.
Thank you very much, Abedin, for those kind words, and we appreciate the insights you shared on the workings of Sebori Farms and your plans for the future. We'll come back to you, and please go to the comment section and the question and answer section, and we'll respond to some specific questions directed to you. I'll be moving on to my colleague here in Sahel. Her name is Jumai Bapa. She's a gender advisor. She's one that makes sure that everything we do has a gender lens to it. Jumai, good morning. And thank you for making our time to join the conference.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll be asking you more specifically about the Alden program and what exactly, how does the program look to encourage or promote gender inclusiveness and promote women empowerment?
Thank you, Olumide. Thanks again. I'd like to say Happy Milk Day to the participants, the panelists, and of course, His Excellency. I think I'll start with some context. The Nigeria Demographic Health Survey states that 34% of women participate in some decision-making, specific decision-making within their households, and only 22% of women have a bank account. So now looking at the main areas of the empowerment of women, voice, choice, and agency, you'll see that there's a need to do a lot more in terms of that to change the figures. So the Aldin program objective is to empower women dairy farmers and enable them increase their income, improve their livelihoods, and those of their households. So to do that, Aldin focuses on those specific areas of the empowerment of women: voice, choice, and agency. So voice having to do with men speaking out, to be heard, and to take decisions. Choice, for them to take advantage of all the opportunities that are there, including ownership of assets, and also agency, so that women will be able to have the capacity to take purposeful actions, to pursue their goals and to do whatever they think is right for them without fear of, retribution or fear of violence in any way. So how does Aldin actually do that? So Aldin focuses on behavior change in terms of it being cross-cutting in all the interventions. So, but there are 3 main areas that Aldin is looking at in terms of, the the women farmers. Aldin is looking at helping to establish self-help groups, also looking at financial inclusion for women, and then income diversification. So Aldin is integrating the participating dairy women farmers into organized groups. It's not like Aldin is creating those groups, but it's helping women to be more organized and work within groups like cooperatives and self-help groups to be able to control and manage their own businesses. And Aldin is also, partnering with financial institutions so that women dairy farmers could be provided with more and easier access to services, services like microcredit, services like Islamic banking, like savings schemes, like mobile banking, all those. But Aldin is also, training this budgeting and keeping all those things. Hello?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so in terms of income diversification, Aldin is developing ways of enabling the women to actually take up new trades and other businesses that will help them, diversify, but more in the value chain of nutrition, because we are talking about not just the women themselves, but also their households, their families. So Aldin does that through, female extension workers, radio stations, and using technology to provide the extension services. And Aldin instead to get the participating women to actually achieve their goals. That's the goals they themselves have set for themselves, and to help them improve their lives and the lives of their children. So and their families, sorry. And like I said earlier, it's using behavior change communication as a cross-cutting intervention, so that whatever Aldin is doing in terms of financial inclusion, in terms of diversifying businesses, in terms of all the interventions that Aldin is engaging the women dairy farmers in, the behavior change communication is central, and it's going through all the other interventions. So that's the bit of work that Aldin is engaged in terms of working with women. Olumide?
Thank you very much, Jumai. I like the way you brought out the communication around behavioral change and the link between women empowerment and improvement of the livelihoods of households. And this is something that also relates to nutrition. So the program has a nutrition component because we identified that there's a link between improved livelihoods and dairy development, and also nutritious outcomes of dairy households. And to talk more about this, we have Babajide Adebisi. He's a nutritionist. He's also the public health nutrition expert and project team lead for TechnoServe Aldin project. Babajide, good morning, and thank you for making our time to join us on this conference.
Yeah, good morning, Olumide. Thank you for the kind words. And good morning, everyone. Happy Milk Day. So I'm going to talk in respect of linking dairy household improvement, or linking improvement in livelihood to nutrition outcomes, and also with a focus mostly on the pastoralist household. As we all know, or as it's known, some of the major underlying causes of malnutrition can be traced to various factors, ranging from poverty to inadequate food production and intake, and also uneven household food distribution. And this also includes food taboos and also poor sanitation. And as we know, within the country, poverty level is high and widespread, especially at the rural areas. So this definitely, based on this widespread of poverty, this definitely has a strong effect on food choices. And if you also look at other factors, such as food availability, stability of supplies, and also food accessibility, all these influences poor dietary intake. Just to take a little nosedive into the Nigerian demographic health survey to be able to see what the correlation between poverty or poor household with nutrition or malnutrition is. If you look at the NDHS 2018, which is not just synonymous with the 2018 version, but goes down to other NDHS, we've observed that stunting, which is a measure of chronic malnutrition in children under 5, and which is measured by height for age, is inversely related to wealth, with about 58% of children in the lowest wealth group being stunted, as compared with 16% of children in the highest wealth group. So this shows a linkage. If you also look at the stunting prevalence, mostly let's use the north. We can also see a high stunting rate across from 28.7% in the north central to 51.5% in the northeast and 60.1% in the northwest, with both the northeast and the northwest shooting above the national average of 37%. If you look at another indicator from the same NDHS 2018, still related to children, the underweight indicator, which is used to measure current or show current malnutrition, and is measured using the weight for age. We can also vividly see that underweight is also inversely related to wealth, with 41% of children in the lowest wealth group being underweight, as compared to 10% of children in the highest wealth group. So this clearly shows the link between poor households and malnutrition. And this also shows us that poverty can both be a cause and a consequence of food insecurity, and thereby leading to malnutrition. And like I said, various studies have already established that link. If you now look at the pastoralist households, these are small older farming households, like every other small older farming households, which are already considered to be living in extreme poor circumstances. And for the dairy farmers, this is major because their cash and food banks in their cattle, which they only cash out only when needed. The household is characterized with a monotonous eating culture, isolated household or community structures with little access to basic amenities. We've also seen that there's limitation to the output per livestock unit, which affects their livelihood. And like what Jumai said, we've also seen how the non-empowerment of their women is affecting resource allocation and utilization. So this definitely greatly influences the choices or opportunities available to these households and contributes to the high malnutrition rate in the rural areas. So thereby, any improvement in the dairy sector will definitely lead to an increase in income generation to the pastoralists, which can, and I will underline the word can, lead to improved nutrition of the pastoralist household. We always have the assumption that when income level increases to a smallholder farmer, the first thing they think about is improvement in nutrition. But we know that that is not automatically what happens because there are different interplay of different factors within the household, and the knowledge and value placed on nutrition. It's important to be able to make to determine whether a change will happen or not. So there are a couple of factors that need to be considered for us to be able to really see a transition in the income change to nutrition, to improvement in the nutrition outcome. And one of the first things that needs to be looked at for every program or every strategy that has been developed or has been developed to be able to improve the dairy sector is to be able to understand what are the major barriers to the purchase and consumption of nutritious food. Like I said, what are the food choices? What are the food taboos? What are the cultural factors that influence food utilization, because at times it might go beyond just the pricing of the food, but based on other factors that would definitely one way or the other influence what the selection or what type of food is selected. The second factor is the empowerment of women as agents instrumental to household food security. Like what you might said, ensuring that the women have a diversified income generating activity, ensuring that they have improvement in the livelihood, which we expect will translate into improvement in the lives of children and other members of the household. We know that if women have greater decision-making power over household expenditures and control over resources, and they also have appropriate knowledge on nutrition, the possibility that the household will allocate a larger proportion of their income and resources to improve their household diet is quite enhanced. And we've seen studies that have shown a positive effect of increasing women's income on childhood nutrition, and most especially within the lowest income group. So women are key to improving nutritional well-being within the family. One other thing that also has to be factored is we need to set explicit nutrition-related objectives and activities within the dairy development strategy. And this should focus definitely on integrating these nutrition objectives within the dairy sector, and not just leave it to chance that once there's an improvement in the dairy sector, automatically there should be an improvement in nutrition. If we don't set up an agenda to ensure that we have activities that focus on specific members of the household, which we can measure from time to time, it might not happen. So we need to be deliberate about how this is done. And the last factor that also has to be put in place, and like it's still similar to what you might say, is nutrition education and behavioral achievement communication, because this plays a significant role in translating increased productivity or income into improvements in diet and nutritional status. Whether we use community-based behavioral change communication techniques, or whether we use a broadband, radio, or social media technique, or whether we use community outlets or sensitization, or we link with the health facilities, we need to be able to ensure that we have an integrated effort to be able to do it. The nutrition education.
Yeah, I know. I said thank you, Jude. I know that if I give you the time, you will go on and telling us more about how nutrition can lead to improved outcomes in dairy households. But I think you've been able to draw that link, that linear causal link between if households have improved income, then it can lead to an improved nutrition outcome for households. And the dairy development program is one way in which the income of these households can be increased. So thank you very much today for bringing, and we appreciate the fact that we have an in-house expert in nutrition education and nutrition that can help guide the implementation of the Alvin program. Thank you very much. So we'll be moving on to my colleague, Fisayo Kayode. Fisayo is an animal scientist, and she's very passionate about the work that we do. She's passionate about sustainable livestock production in Africa, and she is currently the livestock associate of the Alvin program at SAIC Consulting. So, Fisayo, can you please tell us how Alvin is tackling the challenges around low productivity in the dairy sector?
Thank you, Olumide, for that. Good morning, everyone, and happy World Milk Day. Please take a glass of milk today. So we'll be talking about what Alvin is doing in terms of increasing productivity. As we all know, there's challenges around the low milk yield of our local dairy cows. Alvin has 5 key intervention pillars. Indeed, you already mentioned that in our presentation, and I'll be focusing on 2 of these pillars. The first one is the training and extension. So we have three major components of training and extension in Audin, where we are training, developing robust curriculum to train farmers on improved dairy farming practices, nutrition education, and financial literacy. Now, Audin is engaging with extension agents, both private and state extension agents, to disseminate training to these farmers at community level. Beyond the project for sustainability, we'll also be identifying model farmers that would serve as champions and disseminate this knowledge to their communities. The next pillar is productivity improvement, under which we have the feed and fodder components, where we are identifying crop farmers and also dairy farmers and we are building their capacity to become commercial fodder producers. And by the end of this program, we aim to engage as much as possible to cultivate 4,000 hectares of land, yielding to 80,000 tons of feed that will be made available to dairy farmers. And we'll be linking these dairy farmers to direct feed markets. We also have the animal health component, where we are providing basic animal health services to dairy farmers through the engagement of veterinarians that would be also trained, and they would also step down the training to some model farmers, about 150 model farmers that would serve as community animal health workers beyond the program. We also identify a challenge around the genetic component of our local cows. As we may all know, an average white Fulani cow, for example, in Nigeria produces about 1.5 liters of milk daily, which is quite low compared to countries like Kenya, where they have up to 15 liters yield of per cow per day. So we are going to be, from this project, we are going to be inseminating 8,000 cows with improved semen to have about 3,000 crossbred cows for increased milk productivity. Finally, we have infrastructure. We are providing these smallholder farmers that we've identified across the 5 program states with access to milk cans to improve milk collection process, to ease their logistics, and also providing them with boreholes, solar-powered boreholes at community levels. By the end of the program, we would have constructed 75 solar-powered boreholes, so they will have access to clean water for milk production and then for their personal use. We are also with the help of the processors we are working with, we are going to be providing them with evacuation trucks to collect milk at community level to ease logistics. So that's what we are doing on Audin to improve local dairy productivity and milk yield.
Thank you very much, Priscilla, for highlighting those key points that the program is doing. What I would like you to dig a bit in terms of productivity as it relates to access to feed. Because of the farming systems we have in the country and the issues around accessing feed all year round, what's the program doing around ensuring that dairy farmers have access to feed?
Okay, as a Nigerian, we should know the challenges that these smallholder dairy farmers face. They do not have access to land, limited access to feed, all year round access to feed. Hence, they tend to move from one region, from the north to the south, in search of feed, and they are just nomadic in nature. And this has caused a lot of clash between the pastoralists and crop farmers. This is a very big challenge, and 70% of the success of dairy farming relies on feed availability. So we identified this as a really, really major factor, and we are rigorously addressing this by ensuring that all dairy farmers that are integrated into this program would have access to feed all year round. So that is why we are engaging commercial fodder producers to produce feed all year round. We are also building their capacity, training them on improved agronomic practices for cultivating fodder. We are also training them on processing this fresh fodder into silage and hay that can be stored all year round and made available to the dairy farmers.
Thank you very much, Fisayo. We appreciate the insights you've shared. So I want to thank the panelists for the insights you've shared today. And I would like to first beg the participants to please give us 5 to 10 more minutes to wrap up this conference. So thank you once again, everyone, and thank you, the panelists. So final words, Alhaji Sanusi, what are your parting words for the participants?
Thank you once more, Mr. Olimi.
Okay, we can hear you now. Just in 30 seconds or less. Just your final words, please.
They are so dependent on the milk from their cows for their household. So such foods have a model which they support them so that they will have their own livelihood grown in such a way that we support them with feeds, with veterinary services so that they can be paid instrumentally. For example, when they brought milk of 1,000 naira, then we can decide on how they will be paid instrumentally so that it will reduce their burden. And when there was dry land, then they can at least hold their cattle without going around. So this is what we do, and we try to organize them into cooperatives. And what we realize that the gender sensitivity is very important, which we consider. About 60% of those that are supplying the milk are women. So, and we know once we empower the women, definitely we are empowering the whole household. So this is what Such Foods is doing. And Such Foods has a small farm which we are trying to expand now. So, and we wanted to have some support from the state government so that we can own the land to give the pastoralists. As you know, they move around, they don't have land. So for us to get the pasture and then encourage people to come into plantation of this pasture and others, then you have to sacrifice, give them land, because they cannot use their land that they used to produce maize or other grains for that pasture. So these are some of the challenges that we are having. So we want government support in terms of the land so that we can move forward.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Sanusi. We appreciate your joining us this program. So because of time, we'll be moving on to the last part of this conference, which is we're handing it over to the national team leader for the Advancing Local Dairy Development in Nigeria program, that is Ernest Yedigo, to give his closing remarks. So Ernest, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful session. We're waiting for Ernest. If he cannot join us, then I'll have to give the closing remarks. Okay, because of time, let me just give the closing remarks. On behalf of the Sahel team, I'd like to thank all of you for spending time with us today. A special thank you to the Governor of Kaduna State, Governor El Rufai, for your presence and your fantastic words. We know how busy you are, and the fact that you made the time to be with us today was fantastic. I also would like to thank every single panelist, our commissioners from Yobe and Kaduna State, MD Abubakar, Andrew Kwasari, CEOs of both Saj Foods and Sabure, and fantastic in-house team, Jumai, Visayo, and Babajide, and obviously thank you to Olumide. And a very big thank you to Dr. Audu Grama, who has been our #1 supporter and partner from day one. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has made Aldine possible and has envisioned with us and partnered with us, and for this we're extremely grateful. Just to round up, I'd like to say some key takeaways that I'm taking with me, and I hope that all of you are taking with you. Number one is that we need to work together. We need to collaborate. We need to share information. We need to co-design the landscape and ensure that we can build a world-class local dairy development sector in our country. This not only improves the livelihood of farmers, but the livelihood of our people, the nutritional status, it empowers women, and everybody on this conversation today has underscored how pivotal the dairy sector is to Nigeria. So we need collaboration. We need to share best practices. We need to share failures. We need to learn from each other. The second is that we need a cohesive policy environment. We know that NLTP, we know CBN, we know Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, Federal Ministry of Agriculture are all working on different pieces of a policy. We need all these actors to come together and work together to come up with a streamlined, cohesive, and consistent policy framework. And we also need private sector to work together, both multinationals and indigenous companies to come together to have one voice around some of these key issues. Keeping in mind some of the issues that MD talked about, we need alignments, we need one voice, we need collaboration to promote local dairy in Nigeria that's affordable, accessible, and homegrown. And then finally, we need to improve the productivity. The upstream, the downstream, and all actors need to upgrade their skills. So that's why we need our research institutions to step up and build their capacity. We need excellence in all aspects of this ecosystem. I can assure you that Sahel is committed to working in this sector, and so is through the Aldine project and through my dynamic team and working with all of you. This is just the beginning. We hope to host many, many more dialogues going forward. You can count on us for data, for support, for knowledge. We are willing to share everything we have that's readily available with all the key actors. And please reach out to us. We're going to put all of you who signed up on our mailing list. So you're going to be getting weekly updates on what's going on in the dairy sector and what Aldine is doing and how we can support you. So on behalf of my entire team, I want to say thank you to all of you for your time. Mondays are always difficult, but this was World Milk Day, so we had to seize this opportunity. A special thank you to all the people behind the scenes from Sahel who have worked so hard on this, Bolaji Chinedu, and a special thanks to Olumide for his leadership, for Fisayo, and for Deji. Want to thank all of you again. Have a wonderful day, a very productive week, and please keep safe and healthy. God bless you all.